Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Ned Bellavance, Ned1313 on Twitter, and welcome to the Daily Check-In for July 22nd, 2020. Today's topic is all about Zerto and what they showed at Cloud Field Day 8, which was last week. In fact, 6 days ago, because I believe they presented on... Did they present on Wednesday or did they present on Thursday? I think they presented on Thursday. Oh, God, the days are just all mushing together like a bunch of marshmallows stuffed in a bag. That's a metaphor. There's a picture for you. So, a few housekeeping items for today. Because this is Cloud Field Day related, I just want to remind you, if you are interested in becoming a Cloud Field Day delegate or a Tech Field Day delegate, if you think you got the chops, reach out to me and let me know. I'm happy to recommend you if everything looks good, or you can actually recommend yourself at the Tech Field Day website. So just go ahead and you can nominate yourself as a delegate. It's a pretty interesting time, and I know right now you can't travel to these sessions and attend them live, but I'll tell you, participating in the live stream is a lot of fun, and it gets you the inside scoop on kind of what's going on with vendors, and also you make some great friends with the network of people that are around Tech Field Day. It's an incredible resource and group of people. So definitely be sure to check that out. With that out of the way, let's check in. How you doing? It's Wednesday. Maybe you had tacos yesterday. I certainly did. I had some delicious tacos. And you know what? Wednesday means leftovers, which means Taco Tuesday isn't entirely over. I'm going to be having some tacos for lunch today, too. So that's A-okay by me. I'm pretty excited for that. Hopefully your week is going well and, nothing's really standing in your way of accomplishing whatever you're trying to do. I've got a lot on my plate and I'm trying to plow through it as quickly as I can. So let's talk about Zerto. What's going on with Zerto? Now, if you haven't heard of the company before, they're probably best known for their disaster recovery and replication chops, especially in the world of VMware. I think the first time that I encountered them, I was at a VMware user group event and they had a booth, and I just walked up and like, hey, so cool name, what do you do? And they were showing me this near real-time replication of virtual machines across data centers and across vCenters. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And unsurprisingly, it is also pretty expensive. Now, I don't know if the pricing has changed significantly since then, but the next time I encountered them was when I was working more as a cloud architect, and I was working with a company that wanted to do replication from their on-premises VMware infrastructure to something in the cloud. And this was the very advent of Zerto introducing their Zerto replication appliance for AWS. Basically, this is a virtual machine or EC2 instance in the case of AWS that runs up there, and it does real-time or near real-time replication of the virtual machines that you have running on premises up to AWS. And then in the event of a failure, you can reconstitute those machines as EC2 instances in AWS. So pretty cool trick there. And I was sort of stacking it up against what was possible with a product that Azure had at the time, which was Azure Site Recovery, or ASR, which they may have changed the name of since then. So they're basically trying to decide between, if I want to go to AWS, what are my options there? And Zerto was the option. And if I want to go to Azure, what are my options there? And the two options, I think Zerto did have like a beta version of their Azure product, or you could go with ASR. So that's kind of where I was coming from with Zerto. That's their lineage. Their background is this near real-time replication, and they use a journaling system basically to do, I think it's every like 5 seconds or you can get, longer than that, but every 5 seconds it updates the journal, and it's intercepting the writes in the path of ESX to actually get that basically almost real-time replication of data up to or wherever your receiving node is for Zerto. So it's pretty cool technology. Now, what were they talking about at Cloud Field Day? Well, and they were doing the standard, hey, what's our vision for the future? We're all about applications, which I think is a good place to be, taking an application-centric view of what's going on in your environment. Sometimes that breaks down a little bit because it can be really difficult to separate out applications that have shared resources. So the two most common that I see is a bunch of applications that are using a file share that's on a shared file system. That's difficult to carve up and move just one application. And the other one is a database server that has multiple databases on it that serve different applications, or even additional database instances on that single database server that are serving different applications. It can be really hard to carve that up. So it's interesting that you'd have to plan your recovery around the dependency mapping. And it's not something that Zerto does for you. That's something you'd have to do yourself. There's a lot of tools out there to do it, but usually the first thing you do in DR when you're planning out your strategy is figuring out the dependencies between your applications and your shared services. So they did talk about that. And then they talked about their two cloud products around Azure and AWS. What's going on with those two? And basically, it's the same model in both. It's a Azure Windows VM or an EC2 Windows instance that has the Zerto software pre-installed. You basically find it in the marketplace, you deploy it to your environment, and then you register it with your on-premises VMware environment, and you start replicating data up to the cloud. That was pretty cool. Now, what are they doing around the cloud that was interesting? The thing that I thought was interesting is they're actually starting to use the native resources within the clouds to do the recovery process and some of the replication process. So rather than using block storage on the virtual machine for the storage of all your replicated data, they're taking advantage of the object store that exists outside of that virtual machine. So directly addressing S3 or directly addressing Azure storage and writing the data out to there so it can grow and be stored outside of that virtual machine or that virtual appliance. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that they talked about, and this was pretty cool, is when you have to recover, you usually have to scale up resources to do a rapid recovery. So the way that they're handling that is in Azure, they've got VM scale sets. And basically what they do is when you want to recover, it places jobs in a queue. So it uses Azure queues and Azure storage. It places jobs on that queue, and then virtual machines in the virtual machine scale set grab one of those jobs and take care of whatever that restore operation is. In a similar vein, they're doing kind of the same thing with AWS. The constructs are a little bit different, but they're using auto scale groups in EC2, and they're doing the import function from there, and they're lining up the jobs, I think, in S3. So I don't know if they're using SQS for that right now, but it was cool to see that they're actually using some of the native resources in the cloud as opposed to just, using all IaaS for everything, because it makes sense. You're there. You use the tools that exist. The other thing that they presented that I thought was really interesting is this idea of continuous data protection for Kubernetes. And that gave me some pause because I was like, is that something we need? Do we need something to do data protection for Kubernetes? Because generally speaking, you've got stateful and non-stateful workloads running in Kubernetes, and the storage on the back end is going to be some sort of persistent volume that a container has or a pod has a persistent volume claim on that persistent volume. You can replicate those volumes with traditional storage software because on the back end, it's really just some kind of volume, whether it's an NFS mount or it could be some sort of block storage. So you could use that traditional array on the back end. But when I thought more about it and this application-centric approach, it started to stack up for me. A lot of organizations are, for better or for worse, trying to move their applications to Kubernetes, and some of them are almost doing a lift and shift. They're not re-architecting their application. If it's Linux-based or even if it's Windows-based, but mostly Linux-based, they're just shoving it in a container and deploying it via Kubernetes. Are there some advantages to that? Maybe, but there's also some dangers with that because the structure around your application, the things that protect it and monitor and take care of it, those are not running in Kubernetes. So you need to bring those third-party tools in with you to give you that level of protection, and disaster recovery is one of those things. So Zerto is going to be introducing, I think it's an alpha. So you can, as a customer, you can request access, but it's in the alpha stage now. You can now use their data protection software in Kubernetes to protect Kubernetes workloads. And basically, it rolls out a controller pod and then a number of daemon sets on each node, and then using labels or using oh my god annotations, you can you can say this workload should be protected by Zerto, and this is the policy I want applied for that workload, replication levels, where it should be replicated to. And Zerto kind of takes care of the rest for you. So as we move to a more Kubernetes centric environment, the tools have to migrate with us in the same way that when we moved from bare metal servers to virtualized servers, the tool sets to provide protection and data management and DR had to move and adopt to those new platforms as well. So it's a pretty interesting shift, and I think Zerto's doing a good job of it. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow will be Thursdays on the Edge, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be talking about, but it might have something to do with lights out data centers. So we'll have to wait and see. Until then, stay healthy and stay safe, everybody. Thanks.